Welcome to yet another episode of ETHealthworld's webinar. The topic for today's discussion is Tariffs Trade-off. Can Indian device makers hold ground amid global trade strain? India's medtech sector is eyeing global expansion, but the recent imposition of a baseline tariffs by the US has thrown a curveball in the game. While much of the global attention has focused on implications for pharmaceuticals, the impact of medical devices segment has yet not received the due attention despite its significant role in India's healthcare ambitions. The webinar sets the context and opens the floor for a much needed conversation over the future of Indian medical device exports amid these shifting trade dynamics. In this session, industry leaders will unpack the meaning of these developments and how Indian manufacturers can stay resilient and competitive in a rapidly evolving trade landscape and balance their growth ambitions with regulatory and financial pressures. We are privileged to have a power-packed panel of industry leaders and experts who bring a wealth of knowledge and diverse perspective from across the medtech ecosystem. Would like to introduce our panel. Today we have Mr. Rajiv Nath, Managing Director, Hindustan Syringes and Medical Devices Limited, and Forum Coordinator, Association of Indian Medical Device Industry. Then we have Dr. Jitendra Sharma, MD and Founder CEO, Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone. He will be soon joining us in this webinar. Then we have Mr. Pawan Chaudhary, Chairman, Medical Technology Association of India, and Mr. Ganesh Sabat, Non-Executive Director, Sahajanand Medical Technologies. Mr. Vikas Dandekar, Editor of ET Health World and ET Pharma, and I, Abhijit Singh, Digital Content Creator, ET Health World, will co-moderate the session. Before we begin, in the interest of time, would like to request our speakers to be precise in their responses so that we can cover maximum pointers and can entertain some of our queries of our viewers. So would like to ask my first question to Rajiv sir. Sir, as we know that the announcement of reciprocal tariffs has been put on hold for 90 days, but the baseline tariff of 10% isn't still in force. So how do you see this for Indian medical exports to US and Indian companies' competitiveness in US market?
So this is being a challenge in the short term because all the buyers definitely are resisting any price hike of 10%. We are getting pressure back that we need to hold our pricing or to share the cost increase with them 50-50. Buyers are trying to negotiate from the perspective that when they have got the long-term contracts with their customers, with the group purchasing organizations, they would like to not be taking the complete hit by themselves over there. So different companies and different manufacturers and exporters will be negotiating on a different pattern and manner. But Mr. Piyush Goyal in his last meeting had given a clear guidance that if the buyer has to take a hit, he has to take the hit. And manufacturers should not be seeking any support from the government that they need to be subsidizing and seeking whatever price loss or profitability loss they're having. The government of India is going to be compensating for that.
So now I would like to bring Pawan sir. Sir, how do you see this announcement for global companies? How are they are looking at these developments?
The global companies are studying the precedents that they have. One of the big precedents is the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930. During the in 1930, because the American economy had slowed down, they raised tariffs like anything through the Smoot-Hawley Act. And the effect of that Smoot-Hawley Act was that America, rather than winning, lost big time. It lost exports, 61% exports came down in 3 years. It lost employment, 8.6% employment came down. Manufacturing didn't move in, and the depression became deeper. So with the retaliation, which is already now coming from the second biggest trader and the biggest trade partner of the world, 120 countries out of the 196 countries, the biggest partner is China. So right now, the companies are studying and waiting for the dust to settle. Of course, this dust unsettled and this tentative and uncertainty around us is making them think twice about where to invest. make the deal size and the deal flow is also already slowing down.
So now we'll request Vikas sir to take from here.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. And yeah, we have a bunch of questions to ask to our subject experts. So since we've covered Mr. Rajiv Nath and Mr. Pawan Chaudhary, I'll go to Ganesh. I've known him, the way the company has grown, and devices itself has become a big sector. Though that has not been much talked about. Again, the very reason we are all assembled here. So, Ganesh, your thoughts on how does it really blunt the competitive edge? Do you think it's going to be difficult for you to approach one of the foremost markets that you would like to have as part of your ambitious goals?
Right. No, thank you. Thank you, because it's great to be in this panel, in this webinar. And great to see our platform, someone like Rajiv ji, Pawan ji, and Dr. Jitendra Sama. So I think if I can focus on US, I think medical device, Rajiv ji and Pawan ji, please correct me if I'm wrong. Our medical device export to US is around $600, $700 million. Most of them are consumables, where the duties are like 0% to 6%. Most of the time it's 0%, but around 6 to 7%. Now they're talking about 27%. The price increase will be almost by 20%. If we charge 6%, 20, 21%, and somewhere close to 30%. Between 20 to 30%, the price will be increased. Of course, anytime your pricing goes up, it's not a great scenario for the customer. It makes you not very competitive. Now, but there is a silver lining in that most of these products are getting supplied from China. Probably Rajiv Nath can talk more about it, where you're talking about 145%, right? Compared to a 27% tariff. Let's say the tariff comes on us absolutely, then China used to undercut us in the market. Now 145% versus 27%. This 120%, does it create a better scenario, better opportunity? So that's one critical question. The other point is, apart from China, there are other suppliers, right? US are most favored nation, so where you have 0% mechanism, and then you have 10% in multiple countries. So I think, of course, it's not something that we all want. Pawanji rightly said, when it was done earlier, it created a lot of challenges. None of us want that. As businessman, we need to be resilient. And the idea is to now then find opportunities. While a lot of things is not in our control, throw curveball towards us, and we have to find ways to score, right? So that's something I think there are opportunities that we can leverage. So that's my thought, Vikas.
Right. Great. Thank you so much for that. I'll go to Dr. Sharma now. It's a very, very well spoken about MedTech zone, which he's heading. And it's also one of the places where we see all our ambitions coming. So much of innovation happening in MedTech device sector. What do you think, will be the implications for companies which are just coming up, waiting for this big ambitious world of medical devices? Do you think with such barriers, do you think they will be able to tap those markets?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity. Every issue, every barrier hurts. What
Okay.
we need to keep in mind is, do we have enough safeguards to protect ourselves from the barrier? Now, in this whole context, any barrier hurts. Safeguards for the barrier has to be thought about and put in place. Barrier will not hurt everyone equally. as Mr. Pawan Chaudhary also mentions many times, Rajiv Nath ji actually practices and demonstrates also, the barriers hurt, the damage it causes will be different based upon the size and the operational scale of the company. Now, given that we are a diversified sector, obviously this scale will not be same for all. Now, I'll give you just two numbers and I'll then pass it on for the next question. Look at the number. India's import is about 64,000 crore. And I'm not being precise. These are approximate numbers, not accurate to the last digit. In 64,000 crore, the import from US is about 12,000 crore, which means broadly 20% of our imports come from US. In our exports of about 25,000 crore, exports to US is about 5,300 crore, which is approximately 25% of our exports is to US, which means anything that hurts will hurt import as well as export if we are reciprocative in our response. Imports alone will not get hurt. Exports alone will not get hurt. Imports will also get hurt, which is an opportunity we create for ourselves. That is my first point. The second point is, if due to tariffs, and we have done a simulation on the numbers, if due to tariffs, if imports come down, if exports come down by 10%, our exports from 5,300 crore will become 4,800 crore. In the next scenario, if exports get hurt by 20%, our exports will come down to 4,300 crore, which means we are looking at a loss gap of 1,000 crore in our exports due to tariffs to US market. Park this number 1,000 crore in your market in the sort of worst possible scenario where our exports get hurt by 20%. Look at what we are looking at import scenario if we were to be reciprocative in our nature. If we hurt the US imports into India by 10%, given that imports are 12,000 crore, they straight away get hurt by, if the imports of US get hurt by 20%, they get hurt by 2,400 crore. So all I'm saying is, yes, we get hurt if tariffs come in. But if we are reciprocative, our gain is approximately, in the simulated scenarios, twice the amount of loss. So loss could be inevitable. Gain is our opportunity. We have an opportunity to grab Indian market for Indian medical device manufacturers by being reciprocative, by converting it into an opportunity and gaining twice. With these two simple points, I hand it over and then I'll come in later.
So that's a lot of number crunching that you have already done. And I don't know if it actually extrapolates in exactly that same way. Do you have any thoughts on that, Rajiv Nath sir?
Well, I'm seeing it from my initial remarks were on the short-term thing. On the medium and long-term thing, definitely there is a huge opportunity for us. The winds have been flowing, I would say, favorably towards India and towards other countries in South Asia and Asia since a couple of years. And last year, during Biden's administration itself, in the first round, we saw that the US FDA had started shutting down supplies from many factories of China to USA based on quality concerns being raised over there as a, I would say, NTB, non-tariff barrier action, which was quickly followed later on by a more stronger tariff action in which custom duties were applied on syringes, needles, gloves, and PPE kits and some other products coming from China on the loan consumables and disposables to safeguard their own domestic industry in China, in USA over there. They have been actively promoting a China plus one policy, whereby they would like to see the supply chain to be diversified and have supplies coming in from other countries. The issue only became whether it was India to be on the front line or some other country to grab that space. And we have seen, unfortunately, we have seen that we have been bypassed by factories being put up in Vietnam, initially in Myanmar, then later on in Vietnam. Malaysia was always ahead of us, some in Thailand, and more fast now coming up most recently Indonesia. Can India grab this opportunity? Yes, we are urging our members from IMED to take this as a silver lining and grab the opportunity and go forward. The challenges are that even though we may be having theoretically a tariff advantage over our competing nations in Asia, the challenge becomes more from the point of view of overcoming the non-tariff barriers. The time and cost which is involved of getting a US FTA 510K approval or a class 3 approval, PMA, pre-market approval, can take anything from 6 months times to 1.5 year time from the actual filing. And to do the filing itself, you will take 3 to 6 months to create the necessary paperwork, documentation, test reports, and credentials to be confident of giving your filing over there for seeking this approval over there. For class 3 products, Mr. Ganesh Sawant can add more perspective on that. Is the huge cost on clinical investigation and trials to be done in USA to back your submissions over there. So this becomes the huge entry barrier cost, and the manufacturer and the exporter has to see. And in the past, of course, this was discouraging for us on most product lines because if the cost of entry is going to be substantial, say $10,000 to $50,000, you have to justify the market which you're going to be getting over there by at least 20 times that entry cost. So if I'm going to be spending $100,000 to enter in just for regulatory purposes, another $1 million to get my technology and my packaging and everything updated and keep a separate inventory for that, until I'm going to be getting a $20 million market, it doesn't make sense for us to make that kind of investment. In many cases, what we are seeing is instead of people coming forward, in fact, they have been leaving the market in the recent past. But yes, now with this shakeup taking place over there, it does start making sense not only to sell to USA. I'm getting overtures from my counterparts in USA to, in fact, invest in USA and put factory over there. Definitely now it starts making sense commercially to invest in USA. Getting a manpower will be, of course, be a challenge. But yes, for products with having a short, I would say, shelf life, especially in diagnostics, where you were not able to export because the transit time involved was a couple of months to reach USA, and the residual shelf life and the inventory rollover would needed to be fast enough to justify selling products with hardly a 1 year shelf life in diagnostics over there. But yes, those manufacturers can now start thinking in terms of using their technological advantage in India, which had moved away from USA to by their own MNCs to Mexico or to Ireland or to India or China, and now bringing back to USA. So I think there are evolving times. We have to be nimble enough to evolve and grab the opportunity which we can. Different product lines will be having different reactions. That is as far as USA goes. As far as India goes, I agree with Dr. Sharma. And I think the Department of Commerce has been cognizant of the fact that because of the blockages of Chinese goods into the US market has led to a huge surplus capacities in China. And because of these huge surplus capacities, they have been dumping the products already since the last 6 months in Biden administration time to West Africa, West Asia, East Africa, countries which have got low entry barriers in terms of no regulations or zero, very small regulations in place, or no tariffs in place over there. So over there, we found that our exports have also been challenged. So we are facing a double pressure. We are facing a pressure of goods coming into India. So there's been a huge spike in import of many products coming into India in the last 6 months. We've shared the data with the Commerce Ministry and DGTR of more than 11 items where the imports have gone up from 15% to 80% just in the last few months alone.
Yeah.
Which is very, very alarming.
Right.
So we have to see as to how to safeguard the Indian industry for India, as well as our exports to avoid this double whammy taking place.
Yes. Yeah, you've made a representation regarding safeguard duties. Now, so in certain categories of products, you are saying that it probably makes sense to set up greenfield projects in the US because the entry barriers, the costs of entry itself is so high that if you're not able to make sufficient provisions for that through sales in the US, it doesn't make sense. And you also, at the outset, Rajiv ji, sir, you actually mentioned that you got some sense from the government that the losses will be absorbed by the government. So
No,
if you can, so I was not able to understand exactly what was that point. So if you
no, I
can
was saying that the government told us very clearly it's your own business risk. Do
Right.
not expect the government to subsidize
Okay.
any of your export losses. So do not come back in your pricing or reduce your pricing and then come back to the government and saying that I've lost money and I need to be compensated.
Okay.
Just to half a sentence add on to what Mr. Rajiv Nath rightly mentioned, for certain categories, it tends to be making sense to put a factory in the US, which is exactly what they want. Hence the
Yes.
tariffs.
Yes, that's
So we would
playing.
be playing by the game if we were
Absolutely.
to do so.
Very true. I was going to come to that point, that that's the whole intention
Whole
of,
language.
But both
and
countries
that's it.
basically, Vikasji, have been struggling to improve manufacturing. And both countries are worried about their healthcare security. It's okay
Right.
to import, and it's okay to be having import competition. Nothing wrong with that. But when you are killing your domestic industry and you're not ready for a pandemic or a serious breakout, both USA and India are in a very vulnerable position. So
Absolutely.
Right.
both need to protect their interests in the same manner and talk to each other. And I think they will be able to empathize with each other.
Right. Will Ganesh Sabat's company also do something similar in terms of redrawing your manufacturing footprint?
So rather than answering SMT as such, I'll say this way, the India medtech innovation and what do you want, let's say, from Mumbai to Manhattan, I've seen a challenge now. But every challenge also brings opportunities because see, for last 10 days, Chinese companies who have developed beautiful technologies has reached out to me and they have started US FDA trial. They have reached out to me and saying, do you want to buy out this technology? We are happy to do the technology transfer to India. Come set up the manufacturing facility. We don't see anything coming up. We are happy to take an exit, do the technology transfer. So
Amazing.
now the question is, Mumbai to Manhattan can be, do you see more opportunities? Probably yes. We need to, when we have this medtech, India medtech that we want to establish, I think we need to grab every opportunity that comes on our way. Whenever there are obstacles, there will opportunity that will come. And we are here to take it. That India should be assured that all our entrepreneurs, yes, there is an obstacle, we are all ready to jump into it and make India medtech dream true.
Sure. Mr. Pawan Chaudhary, your turn now. Some of the large companies are having their bases here, which you represent. How are they responding? What are their thought processes?
So as Mr. Ganesh Sabat said, Mumbai to Manhattan, I like that alliteration. I would like to add another M to it. Mayhem extending from Mumbai to Manhattan, or even MedTech is in mayhem from Mumbai to Manhattan. Everybody right now is hedging their bets. So I was telling you how the Smoot-Hawley Act took America into a deeper depression after raising tariff walls. Then in 1934, they brought in a new act, which is called the Reciprocal Trade Agreement Act. Reciprocal is a word which is which is haunting us in the nights these days because of the reciprocal tariffs. But this Reciprocal Trade Agreement Act was actually to reduce tariffs all over the world because they realized their mistake of by increasing the tariffs, and all the WTO and the Bretton Woods conference, etc., happened after America had faced long-term damage through its short-term thinking. Now again, this short-term thinking of America is going to is creating the risk of long-term damage. And I liked what Mr. Rajiv Nath and Mr. Jitendra Sharma also alluded to. The point is not only how much we will lose between US and us. The point is the other elephant in the room, China, whether it will get into some trade deals. If it gets into trade deals, then it can undercut us in other countries. So all of us, whether multinational or Indian companies, we need to improve our competitiveness, and we need to be able to anticipate what is going to happen, though even the policymakers in America do not know. There is no tariff fairy which will tell you this is what you do and this is what will happen, because last time when you did this, it crashed. So their thing is that if we will hold on long enough, then maybe tariffs will work. But as they are saying, if you will move so jerkingly in the beginning, then the long term will not come. In the long term, they say all of us are dead. So this is the point which is coming right now, that companies are becoming very cautious. Businesses need certainty and they are becoming cautious. The FDI flows also were increasing. And I'm telling you, in most of the sectors, the FDI flows right now, as is my estimate, I have not done the study yet, the latest numbers have to come, but they will start impeding. Vikas ji.
Interesting. With that, I think we've finished 2 rounds. Abhijit, take over for the next.
So I just need to do a follow-up over this with Pawan sir. So I wanted to know that over these implications, who will bear this burden? That will companies will bear, or it will pass on to consumers in
So
America?
mostly the tariff passes on to the consumers. We wish that the businesses, and especially in a place like healthcare, we wish that the businessman as well as the middleman also bear some part of the burden. But in effect, what happens is most of the burden is borne by the customer. And that will that is likely to lead to a recession in demand. In medical devices, the demand does not recede that much, particularly in critical care, because whatever has to be done is urgent and critical. However, the quality and other procedural, let me say, sanctity of healthcare procedures will come under question. So most of the burden will be borne by the customer.
Come in, Abhijit here.
Yes, sir. Yes,
at
sir.
end. So, it's going to be a dynamic thing. So I'll just give you an example. Is the medical devices, right? Let's say India, we have a 27% rise in the cost. What my thought is it will be distributed all across different stakeholders and the price elasticity that is there in the market, right? If 27% price increase in a syringe, let's say I'm just throwing a name because Rajiv ji here, and Turkey, 10%. Let's say Turkey can give a lower price, then Rajiv ji has to clear that cost. It's not going to go to the US market. But the price elasticity, in a sense that, there is no other supplier, with the increase, you are the cost. Then only it can go to the US government, because US medical cost is on the government. So eventually the US government is going to pay for it. So that's my take.
I like that. I like that addition and that intervention, Ganesh ji. And you are right. I was just thinking, one of the multinationals, Belliscura, it is into oxygen devices, etc. It is based out of UK. Biggest market is US. It has given a new guidance after the tariffs have been raised on China, because most of the product is made in China. It has given a new guidance for its profits, and it has lost 34% in shares. So everybody is a loser. Actually, you're right. Everybody is a loser um, when tariffs come up.
Thank you, sir. So now I would like to ask Dr. Sharma. So since MTech has high-end manufacturing basis for some of the companies. So how do you see there is a possibility of China increasing the price of components uh, to bridge this tariff war with US, which can affect Indian manufacturers who are manufacturing their finished goods in India?
Before I answer that, just carry forwarding one comment of Pawanji. The additional cost of commodity in healthcare, whether consumer pays or not, depends upon whether that consumer is under insurance or not. Because if that consumer is under insurance, then reimbursement limits are not going to change, which means consumer will not pay. Businesses will have to bleed to pay the delta. But if it is an out-of-pocket spending, it gets passed on to consumer. So there is a stratification of who pays for it. Now, if you look at components, except medical electronics and parts of radiology, India is not dependent upon China on raw materials for other components of other categories of medical devices. Implants, we don't. Components don't come from China largely. Diagnostic reagents components don't come from China largely. Medical textiles components don't come from China largely. Mechanical devices, assistive technologies, wheelchairs, rehabilitation kits, components don't come from China largely. Component dependency on China is on parts of radiology and electronic components. In electronic components, we have better supplies, more credible supplies, maybe at a little additional cost from Taiwan and Korea, actually. So even if China were to increase the cost of components, to my understanding, we have alternates in the world. The party is not just with China. India has also developed good component level supply chain in last 5 to 10 years. It has. We are now making even guide wires, flexible endoscopes, sensors. Thankfully, there are foundries coming up, 3 foundries coming up in India, which is going to change the game for component industry, not just for medical, but for automotives, consumer items like microwaves in a big way next 3 to 4 years. So one, our domestic component scenario is changing for better more and more. 2, there are alternatives in the world market. So if China were to increase, it will hurt, but should not matter much. But why China is important, I'll tell you. If you look at the numbers, imports from China almost compete with imports from US into India. What can we do to restrict Chinese imports? That's another opportunity for us. Rajiv Nagji has been telling this for 2 decades. We have acted too slow. The only way, just because US is getting into tariffs, we get into tariffs is one mode. Can we do something for China? Even today, the Chinese goods registration requires Ministry of Commerce approval. It comes to us for assessment. We assess and give. Most of the time, we don't recommend, but Chinese goods are actually proliferating in the market in a big way. White labeling and many other methods. There is a space to block China items. It's an opportunity of about 11,100 crore, almost 12,000 crore, equal to the US. The second is look at Russia. Russia has stopped taking medical technologies from rest of the Europe. The only places Russia can take medtech is US, China, and India. Chinese companies have entered Russian market in a big wave last 4 years. India is going great with Russia in oil and petroleum, not on healthcare. Russia is another big space because Russia will remain cut off from European market for at least 5 years. Even after hopefully the war scenario settles, Russia is a big market. So for me, restricting Chinese commodities into India to capture the 11,000 crore market as much as we can, entering Russia, competing with China because Russia-China share borders, truck simply goes into Russia from China. Entering Russia is second opportunity, and developing component chain on the front end so that we can piggyback on the fab foundries that are coming up at 3 places, 2 in Gujarat and 1 in Assam. As soon as foundries are operational in next 3 to 4 years, because all our motherboards, scintillators, sensors, photodiodes, all of them are going to be based on foundry products. If we develop the front end today, we can bank on our foundries 3 years by 2028-29 or 29-30. I think these are three opportunities as well.
So just one follow-up over this. Since we are discussing exports with US, do you think that if we diversify to other markets, we can generate the same value as we get from US?
No, we cannot. Because US is also a high-paying market. So you don't earn as much delta selling in Bangladesh as you would get in Boston. And that is where Rajiv Nathji's first comment was very important. Either we walk into the game that is being played, or we develop a stronger game ourselves.
So I think Chinese component prices are not going to be going up. In fact, they're going to be going down.
Absolutely.
I think that both medical devices and components, since they will not be able to access the US market with surplus capacities available, we're going to be seeing price reductions in every commodity, every component, every kind of product coming in from China, not only medical devices. So that is an excess that's not going to be adding to our inflationary cost. It's going to be reducing that. Let's be clear about that, point number one. Point number two is, if we business people and the government is very wary about it, do not allow India to be used as a routing zone where Chinese goods come in and pseudo manufacturing is done, packaging, labeling, stickering is done and sold as Indian products to USA. If we don't play that game, and we should not play that game, we have an opportunity over here to now shake hands with Chinese suppliers who will be happy to part with us, their customers and their technology and machinery, equipment, and the complete supply chain of components. Whether India can grab it, that we have to see, because if we will not grab it, definitely Vietnam, Indonesia, Cambodia are going to be grabbing it.
Or what Mr. Ganesh Sabha just mentioned, Chinese companies are eager to sell off the technology, somebody is going to take and fly away. So there is a absolutely brilliant space, Rajivji, as you rightly mentioned, for us to take the technology. Just take the example of linear accelerator for cancer care. 2 companies in the world have the beam bending required for linear accelerator for, say, 15 or 16 mega electron volt. Sweden and the US. China has it. There is a shake hand now required. Diplomatically also things are getting better. This shake hand could get converted into a stronger value chain, which will make us more self-sustainable. Sorry, Rajivji, I interrupted you, but just wanted to compliment on your
very right. Strategically, we have to safeguard our interest in not allowing an influx of medical device coming in, but everything else can come in, and everything else can be then factored into Make in India. So we have to play the game, I would say, more strategically and in a nuanced manner, so that we get the gains from this whole problem and not face problems from the problem.
Thank you, sir. Sir, extending this part and bringing that policy angle. From policy, we have seen that talks are going on for bilateral trade with US, where ET has reported government is considering to lower the tariffs for US med device makers for India. And last week, we have seen AMED raising the demand of putting safeguard duty on 12 medical devices categories. So please elaborate if you.
Yes, I think so. It's a question of perceptions over here. Definitely, in many product lines like automotive or many products, India does have high tariffs of more than 100%. But in medical devices, we've got tariffs at 0%, 5%, 7.5%.
absolutely.
They have been extremely low. And on today's date, USA's 10% baseline tariff is much higher than India's tariffs over here. So I think it's a question of reaching out to USA and making them understand we have to empathize each other's concerns. They need to protect their manufacturing. We have to protect our manufacturing. They need access to our markets. We need access to their markets. They need to diversify their supply chain. We need to diversify supply chain. They're worried about issues about certification, about accreditation, about quality, about making sure that data integrity is there in manufacturing, the laboratory reports, and they are not fudged reports. I think we should be having the same concerns in terms of consumer protection and our integrity over there. They are very much interested. And today's, I saw an article on X where US government is now in not only with India, but with every bilateral negotiation which is going on around the world with 70 countries. The biggest ask that they're having over there is to make sure that the country will not be used for routing Chinese products coming in from that country. Shoes coming into Vietnam and just being put into boxes and being shown as Vietnam branded shoes coming into USA. So that is the biggest risk. They wouldn't like to see needles coming into India and being packed as Indian needles and then going into USA. So these are the kind of things which they are concerned about, and India should also be equally be concerned about that. And I hope that this BTA which is happening will be a win-win for both. I hope it is not going to be an area where when we walk out, we find that it is being asymmetrical to one country and big disadvantage to another country over there.
Rajivji, can I ask you a small question, if Abhijit permits?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Rajivji, given that India, European Union FTA is also going on, discussions are going on, and it's progressing very well, are we better off by asking US to lower a tariff and we lower a tariff, although it is already lower than US baseline tariff, 5% on an average? Or are we better placed that US raises the tariff and we also raise the tariff in med devices? What is we are better off which way?
So I don't think the government is playing this game of reciprocal to USA. They would not like to upset Big Brother America. And I don't think even though you've given the maths numbers that if I get one punch and I get hurt, I hit back, I'll be getting a bigger advantage for my domestic market. That's not going to be working out because I don't think USA and India is going to be negotiating on that basis. So yes, they would like to see it lower, but the perception needs to be clear, both for Europe and for USA.
But we are already lower than them.
We already are low. That is not
lowering this would be disastrous.
Yes. So again, the second part comes to of the issue of being non-tariff. And in terms of non-tariff, we have been in a slightly awkward place over there that other countries have got RRAs and MRAs in place between USA, Europe, Australia, Scandinavian countries, Japan. India has not been able to play that game because we are using BIS standards. We are not having a dual acceptability of BIS and ISO standards. Internationally, ISO standards what is recognized. So our own regulator has to recognize voluntary certification like other countries do accept in Europe and in USA. They do accept voluntary certification based on ISO standards. So laws and regulations are different in different countries, but commonality by using standards is something that even developed countries use. And that is something that India has to play a dual role. So for domestic market, BIS, global market, or if any manufacturer has got a voluntary ISO standard, that has to be taken in cognizance and to be recognized by a regulator. Unless our regulator does it, we really are not in a position to ask foreign regulators to do that. And whether our regulators will be broad-minded, I think now it is for the government and the Commerce Ministry to convince that don't hold pharma back, don't hold medical devices back. If the industry wants to play the global game, let them play the global game.
So now bringing in your Pawan sir, wanted to ask you that lowering tariffs policy. Earlier, this year we have seen MTI has recommended for lowering import duty for those devices which are not manufactured in India. So how does MTI is viewing this situation and what's MTI's view?
So our view is that lowering of custom duties for products which are not import substitutable in India in the short to mid term. So this is our view. Regarding the tariff point, now the situation has changed because Trump is bringing, not only posturing, bringing reciprocal tariffs. So I have written an article on the economic, moral, and social fallout of Trump's directives of the first 100 days. So the point which I'm making there is, I hope this is posturing. And I hope that eventually Trump will also scale down tariffs. We also scale down tariffs and a win-win equation emerges. So this is my hope. I am similarly on ethical level also hoping the same because Trump has said that I suspend FCPA for next 6 months. He might have said Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. He would have said this. Actually, it is, I conclude through research that he's saying this because he finds that China is cornering the infrastructural uh, assets by bribing, by allowing its companies to bribe the other countries' governments, etc. So Trump has said, I suspend it for 6 months. I hope this is also a posture, because if if this is a posture, then other countries also can think of bringing something like FCPA. In India, in 2011, we did bring out this bill, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Bill, forbidding foreign corrupt practices. So it is possible that other countries also, including China, start thinking that this country, which was very liberal and had a strong Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, is now withdrawing, is now retreating. So let us also come to the forefront and clean up the system, liberalize the system. So this possibility is still there, because Trump yesterday said that I am flexible. His words are that I don't change my mind, but I am flexible. But a few days back, he said, I will not be flexible. These tariffs are going to hold. That means somewhere there is a bit of a posture in this, or maybe the reality of the situation may force him to say that it was a posture. So this is my expectation, that greater liberalization will help India, because the level, we might have not been great warriors in the past, but we have been very good traders, we have been very good businessmen. The level of enterprise and the level of energy, etc., which you see here is really mind boggling. And India is really tops in that area. So a more liberalized space, as Jitender ji just mentioned, uh, the prospect of that might be to our advantage. Actually, why they are going against WTO and liberal trade? Because the rules of the world were made by the powerful. So they favored the powerful. Now those powerful started realizing, ये तो China and India are rising because of these things. China and India are rising. So now they are changing the rules. The liberalization of the global economy hurt the authors of those rules, because India and China and countries like that started playing that game better. So now they are wanting to change the rules.
There is one
Yeah.
more economic fallout, Pavanji. A country called Barbados. It is just 1.5 hour, 2 hour away by flight from Orlando. It used to take medical devices entirely from US. Day before yesterday, truckloads of containers of medical devices have been shipped to Barbados from AMTZ Visakhapatnam. Now, the point is, even these neighborhood smaller countries are migrating off the US due to the economic fallouts that you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, US is the biggest market. It may stay attractive, but it has become
Vulnerable
extremely undependable.
and
It has become
vulnerable.
undependable. You
Yeah.
do not want to make friends or allies of people who are undependable. You want steadfast partners. So I think this is the self goal which has already been done by America on itself.
So one of the point that I'd like to also highlight, Pabanji has rightfully said, uh, the tariff dance that we need to do to find our glory. Is it posturing? Because if it is just posturing, we make investment, we make our moves, it can backfire. That's one thing that we are also trying to see. Is it posturing, or it's going to now a 90 days pause, then a leave, leave to everyone? Is that what is going to happen? Or can you rely and start investing and, and hold our tradition of Indian businessman, right? The other point that we have to think also, where WTO stands. A lot of things India didn't do because we cannot go past WTO. Now, is WTO going to be defunct? That means everything is going to change. Everything is going to change. So those are the two large points. And these are the uncertainty time. But there are opportunities. We just need to be ready with our plan. Whether to execute it or not, I'm still not very sure. Particularly the long-term strategies. Yeah, sorry.
Very good points, Ganesh ji. I think Vikas ji asked us, how are the multinationals behaving? See, we are scrambling. In the April 1st week, when we came to know that this 10% plus 25% is coming, we ran to the EPCMD, Export Promotion Council, to check that on which date which is coming. And we were told on April 5th, you will get 10% increase in tariffs of any exports from India. And your exporters, if they do it after 9th, then it will be 35%, the 10 plus 25. So our exporters then ran to somehow execute all the export orders by 8th. So it's very, very arbitrary what is unfolding. Whether it is posturing or it is real is further complicated by the fact that if it is posturing from America and it becomes real from China, because China is a very serious player. It doesn't, I would not say it doesn't believe in posturing, but its past shows that when tariffs were raised by UK, when they had raised tariffs on UK against opium supplies. Sorry, Britain had a negative balance of trade, so it told China that we will supply opium to you. They said, no, don't supply opium to us. This was in the 19th century, 1850s. Don't supply opium to us. Our generation is suffering because of opium use. But UK said, no, we will supply. So this trade war ended up in the opium war. The China and Britain fought a deadly war because of this trade issue. So this is a very serious player. It lost, but this time, just imagine if China and UK fight, who will win? This time, the serious player has become very substantial in size and might.
So now I think we'll request Rajiv sir has a point. Sir, requesting you to please be
Yeah, just a quick
precise.
point I'd like to add over here. I think too much of anything is bad. Too much globalization has come back and bitten USA. They wanted to step back. Too high duties becomes too protectionist and is bad because it doesn't bring out the best competitiveness. But also on the other side, the other extreme of having no tariffs has also been hurting manufacturing in many countries, which was required. So I think a balancing game, a strategical game needs to be played by every country to some level, to what is important for them, which product, which category, which business allows some level of protection to be available, not too much. And I think that is the way forward for USA and India. And for any other country, it's not going to be FTAs, it's going to be bilateral trade agreements. Posturing, yes, is going on, but that is to negotiate what is the best outcome for USA. What is most important is that India is the front runner, and how the outcome of the BTA comes out between India and USA is going to be setting the example for every other country in the globe. Europe is looking at the negotiations very closely. Other countries who are second round, third round in the range, whether Vietnam or Mexico, are watching everything very closely because every example is going to be setting the example for the next one over there as a precedent.
Just to add one small bit to that,
Yeah,
US, China put together is 45% of imports into India. Tariff or no tariff, we need to strengthen our industry that this 45% comes down to respectful under 20-22%. Two countries giving 45% of our imports is unacceptable under any economic standards.
Now requesting Vikas to conclude this. Unfortunately, we have run
Thank
out
you.
of time.
Yeah. Yeah, so the beauty of a good conversation is that we really have shortage of time, and it's only because of our expert speakers who really opened up so well over the last 1 hour. I think Rajiv Nathji really summed it up so well, and all of it was included in that. And I liked some of the key takeaways, like the opportunities that we see from the uncertainties. I think there are less concerns, more spirit of opportunity. The Barbados example that Dr. Sharma brought in here, I think the need of a safeguard duty to really restrict some of the Chinese imports, while also being open to having technological collaborations, like how Ganesh mentioned. I think all of it, and then the how the Smooth Hawley act backfired. Overall, I like that phrase which came up of from these tariff wars. Everyone is a loser. So I hope there is again some global, restructuring happening, and I think medical device sector in India is not so well covered, but it's a phenomenal example of technological innovation. I think Dr. Sharma is sitting on a lot of fortunes there for so many companies which are springing up so well. And I think that really keeps our flag moving higher. So thank you so much. Again, I think we'll probably need to come back again on devices sector again and again, because there is just so much happening. And we'd like to keep a close tab on that. And thank you so much, all our speakers. It's always difficult to find time in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week also. Absolutely appreciate that. And thank you so much, all the attendees who took time. We run out of time. We couldn't take all the questions, but I think the conversation was very enriching, and a lot of questions were answered in that. So thank you again, and we'll wrap it up here. And all the best to the medical devices industry. Thank you again.